direct interest in this. When I went for Hajj 5 years ago, we used Moulana Abdur Rahman Laily to provide the type of unique insights that only he can do to try and get us in the right frame of mind for the Hajj. So not only did we have those conversations going on for weeks on end, but we also put that into a YouTube video, which I would suggest, well, it lives, right? It lives on YouTube. So if you just Google my name or just Google my Hajj coach, you will find that conversation, about 10 or 11 of them, with Moulana Abdur Rahman Laily. So it's very opportune as we move into the Hajj season now. But it also tells me, since Moulana Laily is in Saudi Arabia right now on the Umrah, that perhaps we should talk to him about getting not so much the Hajj right, but the Umrah of Ramadan right. So Moulana Laily, Assalamu alaikum, you've got this big responsibility. How do we get the Umrah of Ramadan right? In fact, I think we just lost him for that moment in the middle of all that introduction. Let me just tell you, in the meantime, let's see if we can get him back as quickly as possible, right? But I just want to tell you, here's the thought. Sentio is an ethically based asset management company that is focused on delivering superior risk-adjusted returns for their clients, regardless of market conditions. For more info on their Sharia investment products, visit their website, sentiocapital.com. So sentio-capital.com. Start saving towards your investment goals today. Sentio Capital Management, invest for good. Sentio Capital Management is an authorized financial services provider. Okay, we've been reconnected now to Moulana Abdur Rahman Laily, which he will maybe talk about Umrah as a way to connecting to Allah, and he has his own ways of talking about that. Moulana Laily, appreciate your time. Assalamu alaikum. We will connect with him in just a moment. It takes a second or two, I think, to sort of connect completely. Let me just tell you about a couple of more things that you may have seen regarding the issue of Hello Darlings. We tried to get hold of them. The people affected, they've all been on this Telegram, sort of a WhatsApp type of group, and they don't want to talk. They just say they want their money. But we now understand that Hello Darlings has been an application to have them provisionally liquidated, which means that it becomes a legal issue. So there's no way they can give you money separately. They would need to give it to you in a way that is part of a distribution if there's any assets left behind, but sometimes can be like 1 cent to the rand type of thing. I don't know. I'm just saying that's the issue. They, unfortunately, the representatives of those who lost money, they don't really want to talk right now, which is a huge pity, because we certainly wanted to speak to them to get their side of the story. Okay, I think we've reconnected now with Moulana Abdurahman Laily. I can certainly see you. Assalamu alaikum. Third time of trying, so glad we finally are connected. Appreciate your time.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan. I think, as it always is, the line was stable whilst I was waiting backstage, but the moment we go live, the challenges arose.
Well, absolutely, but maybe that's the natural link to what we're talking about, is how do you connect to Allah when you have a disconnection, particularly around getting your Umrah of Ramadan right. So what advice can you give someone watching us?
Well, subhanAllah, I think the first is in the current context and climate, just with regards to travel in general, we must appreciate that, when the moment arrives or arises for us to travel, we should strike while the iron is hot. And unfortunately, we are currently not living in a climate where one can plan too much in advance. And I guess maybe that's what informs our discussion today, because in prior years, people would plan months in advance that inshallah this Ramadan I'm intending Umrah, and all the elaborate preparations being made, etc. Whereas now, because of changing restrictions around travel in different regions of the world, different countries, different airlines, etc., there's a whole lot of additional factors that one needs to consider in terms of planning a trip. So I think on a high level, the first or four important components would be that one needs to look at what the lead time or the processing time is for the visa, that being the most important. The second is availability of flights coupled with what the regulations surrounding that particular carrier are. Some of them requiring vaccination, even though it's not a requirement at destination, as an example. The third and fourth would be making sure that you have the necessary accommodation in Madinatul Munawwara and Makkah al-Mukarramah. I think 3 and 4 tie up quite strongly with number 1, in the sense of you can't process a visa until you have confirmed accommodation, because all of this gets loaded into the system.
Absolutely. And then what about the spiritual connection? Because I mean, Umrah is a mini Hajj. but it is an umrah. But it is, and the umrah of Ramadan will be very different from an umrah during the holiday period in December, right? So how should a person approach that
Oh yes,
spiritually? That is, yeah.
subhanallah. I think spiritually we approach Umrah in Ramadan from the perspective of what we would approach any other Ramadan. Looking at the sages of previous periods, then they would look at the months preceding Ramadan as Rajab as the month of planting, and then Sha'ban is the month of irrigation, and Ramadan is the month of harvesting. So even though one can't do the logistical preparations too much in advance, or is advised against doing the logistical preparations too much in advance, no one should hold back from preparing adequately spiritually from the beginning of the month of Rajab. And this is flavored by the dua that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam made: Allahumma barik lana fi Rajab wa Sha'ban wa balighna Ramadan. Grant us blessings in the month of Rajab and Sha'ban, and deliver us unto the month of Ramadan. So that is a high level in terms of looking at how one prepares for Ramadan in general, and more particularly with regards to Umrah. I think a little bit before the trip, while this may
Mm,
sound more logistical or practical, it actually has a great bearing on the spiritual. One needs to familiarize oneself with the timings or the awqat of Salah in Medina al Munawwara and Makkah al Mukarramah, knowing that from whichever part of the world we come, there would be some variance. For us in the southern hemisphere, naturally, we going into our winter, whereas here in Saudi Arabia, they approaching their summer. So the discrepancies in terms of the times and being able to at least orient your mind to, hey, Fajr is going to be an hour earlier, or 1.5 hours earlier, and
mm,
Isha is
mm.
going to be later, etc. So you mentally prepared for that when you arrive, and as we would say, you hit the ground running, not needing a few days to acclimatize to this change of time, which means lost opportunity in
Yeah,
terms of
yeah,
ibadah.
yeah, yeah. And if we say, for the Hajj, for the Hujjaj, the culmination of the Hajj, which can be 6 weeks, in fact, is 5 days, right? Getting the Hajj right. What then does the person who's performing the Umrah, the mini Hajj, in Umrah, what do they need to get right?
Oh, subhanallah. So this is one of the challenges of Umrah in all time, and naturally found in Ramadan as well, that Hajj, there's the build up to that climax. And for Umrah, you need to be self-driven, because there's no climax that you're building up to. Number one, in more than most instances, an Umrah trip would be one second or third or successive trip. It's not your first trip ever. So all that raw emotion of the first sighting of the Kaaba ever in your life, and the first visit to the Masjid of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Masjid al-Nabawi sallallahu ala sahibihi, doesn't exist, because it's not the first experience. So you really need to be from within your own core, be infused with this idea of, I need to maximize, and I'm not going to go there and hope to drink out of spirituality, and be taken away by the moment. I actually have to create that moment myself. There's no specific climax, number one, but I think what works very well is when one plans one's day and one's itinerary. So building on the idea of time, what are my goals? I'm going to be in Medina al Munawwara for X number of days. What do I hope to achieve? I'm going to be in Makkah al Mukarramah for X number of days. What do I hope to achieve? Have a plan, stick to the plan. Noting also that in terms of the management of both the facilities, Medina al Munawwara, Masjid al Nabawi, sallallahu ala sahibihi, and Masjid al Haram in Makkah, it's not open and free access as it was in previous times. As an
Mm,
example, in Makkah al Mukarramah, access to the mataf is only for those in the state of Ihram, which means that I can't have those euphoric experiences of doing iftar on the mataf every other
mm,
day,
mm.
and doing a tawaf as a build up to Salatul Tarawih, so that I get a place, literally behind the Imam, etc., etc. So it's knowing I'm going to be on the mataf once on this entire trip, whether I choose to stay in Makkah al Mukarramah for
Yeah,
4 or 5 days or 15 days, and how am I going to maximize that time on the mataf? I mean, one of the ideas that I've been mulling over myself personally was, in terms of Madinah al Munawwara, one gets, by virtue of the apps that are being used to regulate crowds and kind of streamline movement and facilitation for everyone. The apps that I'm sure Salam Media listeners and viewers have heard about, Tawakkalna and I'tamarna.
mm,
So
mm.
Tawakkalna, more the health app, that Tawakkalna, we place our reliance in you, meaning Allah subhanahu wa
Yeah,
ta'ala,
yeah.
and i'tamarna, our Umrah. Using these two apps, one is allocated an opportunity of making a reservation to visit the Rawdah, whether male or female, once only on a 30-day visa. So I
Yeah.
asked him a
Wow.
question. If one gets the opportunity of going to the Rawda once only, the slot is 30 minutes. It takes 8, 10 odd minutes for them to place you in the Rawda, and in 8 to 10 minutes for them to remove you from the Rawda. So essentially, you're looking at like 18 minutes, 16
And
minutes
that's it. Yeah. Yeah.
is the net time. What would I do in those 16 minutes on the road? Knowing that on this trip, whatever it cost me 20, 30, 40, 50,000 rand, that's the 15 minutes that are special around my stay in Medina to Munawwara.
And therefore,
No,
what's your advice? I'm going to give you like 60 seconds to answer that.
so subhanallah, what are types of ibadah that you could conduct before those 15 minutes and then bring them to a fruition whilst you're on the road? As an example, if I'm here in Ramadan for days before coming to Medina al Munawwara, or during Rajab and Sha'ban, I complete the khatam of Quran and perhaps leave 3 surahs. So I can say that I was sitting in the Rawda, I was sitting in Jannah, and I completed the Quran, as an example. Now, you
Yeah.
can't think that up on the spur of the moment. This means that preparation for weeks, months in advance would need to have been done in terms of reciting your portion every day so that you have these 3 surahs. Naturally, some durud and salawat upon Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, maybe at the max you'd be able to do 6, maybe 8 rakats of salah. So a hybrid of the different types of ibadah, and also then in terms of dua. And we take you from a series the two of us did, that when it comes to dua, we take from the dua of Quran, Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhab an-nar. So 3 portions. Allah asks you for the goodness of this world, and you can unpack that goodness in
Mm.
successive du'as throughout the rest of your stay. I ask you for the goodness of the hereafter. Similarly, unpack that in the rest of the du'as that you make, and ask Allah for safety from the hellfire, in terms of putting all of those barriers in place so that you are not don't fall foul to the snares of shaitan.
Yeah, well, there you are. There is so much to think about around that, Moulana Lady. Appreciate your time, and I think it's got everybody considering how they approach it. As you said, it cannot be just spontaneous. Some things you need to absolutely plan and get right. So, thank you for your time. Yes, I want to alert people to follow the My Hajj Coach series that you and I did 5 years ago, because I think it's very telling, particularly moving into the Hajj period now, which will come up on the back end of Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum. Hopefully, we'll have another chat or two before the end of Ramadan in this feature, the how-to of Ramadan. Moulana Abdur Rahman Laily. Right.
Inshallah, we have the opportunity of revising my Hajj coach based on some of the latest changes. Amin ya rabbal alamin.
Well, there you are. Invitation is open. Absolutely taken. Thank you. Let's get to another thing that's, I think, really fascinating. We have this feature called Champion South Africa. So how do you champion South Africa? And you do it in many, many different ways. Now, I particularly am aware of the work of Play Africa and what they do, and have to declare an interest. We've certainly, as Champion South Africa, already endorsed the work they do. But with me is, so let's find out more about what they really do with Gresham Wilson Prangley, the outgoing CEO of Play Africa. Gresham, appreciate your time and good morning. Gresham, do I have? Okay, in fact, we're going to get to her right after this.